Number 9. Stealing from the needy. In the west side of Chicago, a church run by Reverend Clarence Smith Jr., called the New Life Impact Church, served as a safe place for lost souls in the neighborhood. It was a place where the hungry could be fed. At least that's what it was supposed to be. In reality, the Reverend was stealing from his members. Hundreds of thousands of dollars that came from a federally funded program to feed children in need was taken by Smith. What did he spend that money on, you might ask? Well, $142,000 of it was spent on a Bentley, and more was spent on other luxury goods, and that's just what was uncovered in 2020. Smith has a long history of financial deviancy. 10 years prior, the Reverend was accused of swindling an elderly man. He supposedly used multiple signature forgeries to get over $100,000 from the poor guy. And that's not where his money troubles and sketchy behavior started. In 2012, he owed $80,000 in restitution fees, but he filed personal bankruptcy to get out of it. Plus, he'd been sued twice by companies meant to supply food after he bailed on their contracts. And he's $8,000 overdue on his church's property taxes. His recent crimes stem from him over-reporting the number of meals he served to the needy, so the government sent him more money than he ever needed. Close to $1 million was given to Smith's church, but he would take it and use it for himself. So what happened to him? Nothing. Well, he's under court supervision. Not exactly nothing, but it's more than likely he'll get off with no hard convictions. Number 8. Creflo Dollar. Most people have some kind of bad experience with an airline, whether it be losing luggage, missing a flight, or getting delayed. The difference between Pastor Creflo Dollar and most people, though, is that most people don't think the solution to the problem is buying a $65 million private jet. But that's exactly what Creflo asked his followers to help him do. He wanted each of his 200,000 members to donate $300 to the cause, claiming it was so he could safely and swiftly share the good news of the gospel worldwide. To us, it sounds like he just wants a private jet to fly around the world in. There are so many better ways to use the money, like feeding the hungry, providing shelter, or just helping the needy in any way. But no, a $65 million jet is the solution to all the world's inequalities. And sadly, it looks like Creflo is going to get what he wants. His official ministries organization, the World Changers Church International, made an official announcement that they are ready to buy the jet. This isn't where Creflo's unholy deed started, though. Back in 2012, he was arrested after getting into an argument with his 15-year-old daughter. She claimed that he punched and choked her, which he, of course, denied. Thankfully, the court wasn't as gullible as his congregation and still charged him with 2 misdemeanor counts: cruelty to children and simple battery. Despite this, Creflo is still getting his jet, so get ready to see him flying around the world soon, spreading his gospel. Number 7. Paul Jennings Hill. Sometimes people take their beliefs way too far, and Paul Jennings Hill is the perfect example of this. As a minister in the small town of Pensacola, Florida, with a beautiful wife and 3 kids, Hill had the textbook definition of a cookie-cutter perfect life. But sometimes he took his preachings a little too far, and one day, off the deep end. You see, Hill was a well-known anti-abortion extremist, even making multiple television appearances where he said so-called defensive action must be taken against those who provide abortions. Shortly after these appearances, the Orthodox Presbyterian Church excommunicated him for his unholy activism. A year later, in 1994, Hill took his beliefs and turned them into actions. He walked into an abortion clinic in his town named the Ladies Center. One of the doctors at the clinic and his bodyguard, John Britton and James H. Barrett, were the first Hill spotted. He opened fire on the 2 of them with a shotgun at close range, killing them both. The bodyguard's wife, June, was also nearby and wounded. Luckily, she survived the attack. Once he finished what he intended to do, Hill simply waited for police to arrive and arrest him. The excommunicated minister received the death penalty for his crimes against humanity, but he felt no remorse. While waiting on death row for 10 years, he once told the media that a great reward in heaven awaited him. On September 3, 2003, Hill was executed by lethal injection, a fitting end for a sick, misguided man. Number 6. Andy Savage. People can change, but does that mean they should be forgiven for everything they've done in the past? Well, sometimes sorry doesn't cut it. The High Point Church hosts a congregation of over 2,000 members every week in Memphis. One pastor of the megachurch, named Andy Savage, did the unspeakable. Over 20 years ago, when he was 22, serving as a youth pastor, he admitted to a sexual incident with a high school student he was teaching. What he described as an incident, his victim, Jules Woodson, called sexual assault. She came forward with the ordeal during the #MeToo movement. Woodson claimed that Savage took advantage of the power dynamic between them, as her teacher is an overreaching abuse of power. After it happened, he begged her for forgiveness and was beside himself, asking for her not to tell anyone. Unfortunately, the statute of limitations was up, so the assault could not be legally pursued. Andy did receive quite a bit of backlash, though, and, very surprisingly, some praise. Savage publicly announced to his congregation, "After much prayer and counsel, I now believe it's appropriate for me to resign from my staff position at High Point Church and step away from ministry in order to do everything I can to right the wrongs of the past." This announcement and admission of guilt was oddly met with a standing ovation from the churchgoers and many online who praised Savage for admitting his mistakes. Owning up to what you did doesn't fix everything, though. Jules Woodson has had to live with the trauma of her assault for over 20 years, while Savage is just receiving a pinch of the pain she had to deal with. What do you think about Mr. Savage? Should he receive some savage punishment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 5. Ted Haggard. Formerly one of the country's leading pastors for the evangelical faith, Ted Haggard's megachurch empire crumbled after it was discovered he wasn't as devout as he preached he was. Back in 1984, the pastor started off his career in Colorado Springs. He claimed that a vision from God told him he needed to create a church at the center of evangelism. Starting with a measly 22 people, Haggard grew his church, called the New Life Church, into over 14,000 members, making it one of the biggest churches in America. During this time, he was named the president of the National Association of Evangelicals. But what was going on behind the scenes? Everything he built up fell apart in 2006 when claims came out from a gay prostitute claiming Haggard had paid him for sexual acts multiple times. His empire fell overnight. Forced to give up his job at the church he created, he moved to Arizona. While there, he says he received counseling to talk about his sexuality more. He admitted to having gay urges because of a molestation from a man when he was a child, but that overall he was straight. Many were openly outraged with Haggard after he preached homosexuality was wrong, then hypocritically participating in the very same acts. He now talks openly about the whole incident and says the scandal increased his faith. After a few years of reflection, Haggard and his wife, who stuck with him through everything, have opened a new church that welcomes LGBTQ members. Hopefully, Haggard will now be accepting of different people and begin to practice what he preaches. Number 4. Hillsong. A millennial hypebeast preacher named Carl Lentz's career was taken down last year in November 2020 due to allegations of him cheating on his wife. The preacher worked for the world-famous Hillsong Church that has locations in over 30 countries, with 150,000 weekly members attending sermons. Lentz served as the head pastor in the New York Hillsong Outpost, and he was well known for looking unconventional to the typical preacher. He's decked out in tattoos and often dressed like a hipster, most likely to appeal to younger audiences. He's even known for having high-profile celebrity followers, such as the Biebers, Selena Gomez, Vanessa Hudgens, and more. Despite all this success, Lentz was let go from his job as pastor at the end of 2020, and the very next day, he posted a picture of himself and his family at Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber's wedding, with the caption admitting that he was unfaithful to his wife. In interviews with multiple news outlets, Ranin Karim, a young actor and jewelry designer, admitted to an affair with Lentz that lasted months. Lentz's wife, Laura, only found out about the affair after a staffer at the Hillsong office saw Lentz's messages to Ranin on his computer. Yet again, Lentz gives us an example that preachers aren't always holy, and they don't always follow the word of the Bible as law. They are, after all, just human. Number 3. Warren Jeffs. Buckle your seatbelts, because the next entry is going to be a bit culty. Warren Jeffs served as the president of the FLDS, or the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a denomination of the Mormon religion. The FLDS broke off from the main LDS church in order to practice polygamy. In case you didn't know, that's having multiple wives. Jeff lived in a compound along with other fundamentalist members where some seriously messed up stuff went down. Jeff's father, Rulon, was the leader of the FLDS for many years. He had over 60 children and 20 wives. Oddly enough, after Rulon's death, Jeff married many of his father's wives, but that's not all he did. As the highest member in the church, he held the sole right to perform and assign marriages. In 2006, he was on the FBI's most wanted list for arranging marriages between underage girls and adult men. Additional charges against him included sexual conduct with minors and incest. After multiple years of court, Jeff was finally convicted to life in prison. While serving time, he has tried to hang himself, gone on multiple hunger strikes, and has been hospitalized at least once. Many believe that he somehow is continuing to lead the FLDS from behind bars, and present-day members still consider him to be one of God's chosen prophets. Number 2. Jeffrey Lundgren. The FLDS wasn't the only cult to stem off of the Mormon faith. Jeffrey Lundgren was a self-proclaimed prophet in the 1980s that led one of these so-called cults. It was during these years that Lundgren would lead Bible study sessions for his followers out of his home. At these sessions, he would bully and discourage anyone who did not agree with his biblical interpretations. Eventually, he amassed a few devoted followers, some of whom gave Lundgren their life savings to support his preaching. One day, he told his followers that he received a vision from God, telling him they must move to Kirtland, Ohio, in order to witness the second coming of Jesus Christ himself. During this time, Lundgren lived with 7 of his followers. The only ones who didn't live in the same building were the Averys. Lundgren saw this as an obvious sin against himself and God, and he was especially angry to find out that Averys had a separate bank account to use only for their family. He kept telling his followers that they had to seize the Kirtland Temple by force in order to see God, but he soon changed his preaching. He told them that they had to kill a family of 5 in order to show their devotion. It just so happens that there were 5 members of the Avery family. To prepare for the wicked crime, Lundgren told his followers to dig a pit in the barn, close to where they lived, in order to bury the bodies there. After a meeting with all the church followers, including the Averys, Lundgren and his accomplices killed all 5 members of the Avery family. Their bodies weren't discovered until 9 months later, when the police received a tip about the barn. Lundgren was given the death penalty by lethal injection and was executed in 2006. Just another preacher overcome by power. And number 1, Barry Minkow. Barry Minkow has a long history of being a convicted felon. Before and after his time as a preacher, his early crimes consisted of Ponzi schemes, where he scammed investors out of $100 million in one of the biggest accounting fraud cases of all time. After serving decades in prison for this crime, Minkow got out and seemingly was on the straight and narrow path since he started teaching ethics as a pastor in San Diego. It was in San Diego that one of Minkow's congregation members asked him about a nearby money management firm. After looking into it, he realized something was off, so he tipped off the authorities, who discovered a $300 million pyramid scheme. With this major success, he started the Fraud Discovery Institute, where he worked as a fraud investigator, looking into cases similar to his own. But just because he was a fraud investigator doesn't mean he stopped committing fraud. He scammed his own church out of millions and was sentenced to more time in prison. He was released in 2019 and now lives in a small town outside of Tennessee after his movie-worthy roller coaster of a life. Crocodiles are terrifying beasts that have been around for millennia. So imagine just how terrifying it would be to have one join you on your camping vacation. This very thing happened to Alicia Surahan and her friends as they were on a camping holiday at Australia's Bathurst Bay. Being about 200 miles, 321.8 kilometers, out from the nearest city, Cairns, the group was far away from any call for help. Knowing the danger of the animals in the area, the group set up their tents about 50 yards, 45.72 meters, away from the water shoreline. But one night at around 4 a.m., a 14-foot, 4.2-meter long crocodile managed to climb into the tent of Andrew Kerr, his wife, and their 3-year-old son. After hearing her friends screaming over the animal's intrusion, Surahan came to the rescue, torch in hand, like a true survivalist. The 60-year-old woman jumped onto the mighty croc's back, like some sort of Georgina of the jungle, gouging its eyes with her fingers until it let Andrew go. She did get bit during the fight, but luckily she survived after the other campers sent out an SOS, and Surahan was hailed as a true Australian outback hero. Number 12. More than a massage. Massages are supposed to be peaceful and relaxing, putting you at ease. But this was not the case for one young man. A young couple's vacation trip to a luxury Mexican resort went terribly wrong when the 29-year-old man, Corey Sorum, was sexually assaulted during a massage at the Valentin Imperial Riviera Maya Resort. The couple was celebrating their 10-year anniversary and this was the last thing they expected when booking their trip. Corey recounts his experience filing a report of the incident in the local police station at Playa del Carmen. He said the woman he was telling his assault story to asked him if he had enjoyed the sex. Extremely insensitive, we know. She was supposed to be a psychologist. That's what they told him, at least. Months later, after Corey and his wife had returned home, there was still no news of justice being served, which seems to be a common occurrence for tourists in many similar incidents on vacation in Mexico. Number 11. Dark side of Disney. Disney World is supposed to be a magical place that fulfills childhood dreams. So nothing could ever go wrong here, right? Well, not right, as arguably one of the all-time most popular Disney attractions, or at least one of the longest running since 1971, Jungle Cruise has entertained vacation goers for decades. It even got its own movie this year, so imagine how surprising it would be to board one of the ride's boats, only to have it sink in the middle of the ride. Thankfully, everyone who was on board was rescued within 20 minutes of the sinking, safe and uninjured, although the guests were submerged waist-deep in water. But that didn't stop images of the sinking vessel being shared all over Twitter. Some of the website even claimed the accident was a publicity stunt for the upcoming Jungle Cruise movie. Whether it was all an attention grab or equipment malfunction, Disney made sure to help the ride-goers who were on the boat enjoy the rest of their day at the park, so no vacations were totally ruined. I guess the magic must not have been there that day. Number 10. Whale watching. Whale watching is a popular vacation activity to do anywhere the massive aquatic beasts live. But a simple excursion into the water went wrong during 2015 off the coast of British Columbia. Passengers and tourists aboard the Leviathan II ship were thrown into the freezing water after the ship was capsized due to a massive breaking wave. A few of the crew members still on board found a rocket flare and fired it to signal a boat nearby. Sadly, 5 of the passengers on board died in the incident. It was reported that many of the crew and passengers were not wearing life jackets when the ship capsized. This could have easily prevented the deaths. A year after the accident, 2 German tourists who were on vacation when the tragedy took place filed a lawsuit against the whale watching company for their traumatic experience. Passengers were in the icy waters for 45 minutes before search and rescue were able to get to them, resulting in many of them getting hypothermia and seasickness. Have you ever been whale watching while on vacation? How did it go? What would you do if your experience was like this one? Let us know in the comments below. And if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 9. Ziplining to tragedy. So far, this list has made it clear that sometimes when you least expect it, things can go terribly wrong. On his honeymoon vacation in Honduras, one man found this out the hard way. The island of Roatan is a popular tourist spot that has many different activities, including one of the most popular, ziplining. While the newly married couple visited, like many others, they wanted to witness the full ziplining experience themselves. But tragedy struck when the man was killed instantly on the line above the trees after colliding with his wife. His wife was seriously injured herself and had to be urgently flown to Fort Lauderdale to receive treatment for her injuries. It's the last thing you would expect to happen on a honeymoon, but this poor couple had to experience it firsthand. The zipline company apparently received no fault or repercussions. Next time you want to jump off a tree and ride a wire hundreds of feet above the ground, just remember, it could be the last time you ever jump at all. Do you think you could ride a zipline after hearing this story? Number 8. The danger of magic. Las Vegas is known for being the gambling and party capital of the world, with casinos everywhere, bright signs and lights, tourists lining the streets, and most importantly, for this entry, magic shows. A British tourist on vacation in the city of Sin got up close and personal with the magic at one of David Copperfield's shows. He volunteered to be part of one of Copperfield's signature show tricks and involved making an audience member get on stage, disappear, then magically reappear at the back of the auditorium. But despite doing the trick without fault hundreds of times before, something went wrong. The British man somehow fell while being ushered to his position to reveal the trick. After reportedly paying close to 400,000 American dollars to cover his medical expenses, the man decided to sue David Copperfield and the casino resort where the incident took place, the MGM Grand. It's a really tricky situation since the lawsuit is still ongoing. Be careful next time you volunteer at a magic show. You never know what kind of magic is about to happen. Number 7. Costa Concordia. Yet another vacation shipwreck on our list takes us off the coast of Tuscany, Italy, in the Mediterranean Sea. The Costa Concordia, an Italian cruise ship, got a little too close and personal with the water. After hitting hidden underwater rocks, the ship was capsized and sunk into the sea. Vacation turned to tragedy, as 27 passengers died, along with 5 crew members and 1 in the salvage team. 300 people were left stranded on board as the vessel slowly sank into the Mediterranean. They had to be rescued by helicopters and motorboats. The ship's captain did the unthinkable for mariners. He abandoned ship. He was charged with manslaughter for leaving the ship early when passengers were still on board and sentenced to 16 years in prison. The COSTA Concordia sat in the water for 2 years, serving as a reminder of the ruined vacation of hundreds, until it was refloated and scrapped for parts in 2017. Number 6. Tiger chase. People love tigers. They look so cute and cuddly with their sweet faces with orange and black stripes, but we often forget how vicious and terrifying they can be. In Chhattisgarh, India, a group of tourists were on vacation, taking a jungle safari, when they decided it would be a good idea to get closer to one of the big cats. Their tour bus passed by 2 massive tigers fighting each other, when suddenly, one of them ripped away and made a beeline for the bus. It tried to grab at one of the window curtains. It managed to hold onto the curtain until the bus took off, resulting in a tiger chase. The passengers were obviously terrified by the whole ordeal. A video of the accident was taken by one of the tour guides and was posted all over Twitter. Many were shocked to see the tiger acting so violently, since the animals in the jungle park are supposed to be more docile and used to humans. The driver and guide were fired soon after the incident for not taking things seriously and putting their vacation guests at risk. Number 5. Tourist bus road rage. If you ever visited Paris, then you know how bad traffic can get over there. While the city is beautiful and it's nice to take in the sights, if you live there, you see it every day. And just like the people that live in other busy cities, you can get a little cranky behind the wheel. This very thing happened with a coach driver and a bus full of tourists visiting the city. The tourist bus driver apparently experienced a bad case of road rage by the Seine River and across from the famous Louvre Museum. Witnesses say the tour bus hit a car from behind, resulting in the 2 drivers getting in a heated dispute. There was supposedly very light damage on the car, but the driver still got out to confront the one who hit him. Passengers looking on in horror as the men threw punches through the bus window until it somehow escalated even more. The bus driver turned the engine back on and intentionally pinned the car driver up against another vehicle with the bus, killing the man instantly. Imagine being on a sightseeing trip in Paris, and the only sight you see is your bus driver committing murder. That's one surefire way to ruin a vacation. Number 4. London Eye. Back in 2017, tourists were in for a shock when their London vacation took a turn for the worse. They were riding the London Eye, a popular Ferris wheel attraction that overlooks the skyline and major sights of the city. Suddenly, while riding, the Eye came to a stop, leaving passengers wondering what the heck was going on. All they could see from the top of the ride were police and ambulance vehicles on the streets below, outside of the Big Ben clock. Ride attendants voiced into the ride's cars and told tourists there was some kind of incident taking place on the ground. While they were stranded hundreds of feet above the City of London, a terrorist attack was taking place on the ground near the UK Parliament. Concerned for the rider's safety, the Eye was stopped. Witnesses in the cars report seeing people being rescued from the river below, as well as multiple individuals lying on the ground. One woman from the US even claimed she saw people being carried into emergency vehicles on stretchers. Truly terrifying if you have no idea what's going on below you. We're sure these tourists will think again next time on vacation before hopping onto another Ferris wheel. Number 3. Left behind. Cruises are getaways on the sea, and many times they take you to other luxury spots. But more often than you think, some vacationers are left behind by their boats. When making a stop, passengers are made absolutely clear when the ship will next be setting off to avoid any stragglers. But 2 people on the Royal Caribbean ship must not have gotten the memo or heard the ship's foghorns signaling its soon departure. When passengers miss the ship, they are solely responsible for paying additional fees to get themselves home. As the ship left the harbor of St. Martin, people on land recorded a crew member waving a giant, oversized foam hand at the 2 late passengers as those on board laughed. The video went viral on Twitter as people made fun of the 2 who had more than enough time to get back on their ship. Their vacation might have been ruined, but at least the crew member said bye since it was written on the massive hand. Number 2. Nara Park. We've talked about tourist tiger attacks, but what about deer attacks? The Nara Park in western Japan is one of the country's biggest tourist attractions, but most people don't know how dangerous the park can actually be. They just expect to go and see cute little deer wandering around. Well, you might be surprised that almost 160 tourists on vacation were attacked while feeding the animals back in 2019. Akimasa Yoshimura, the head of a civil group that gives tourists information on the deer while they visit, said, "At first sight, it seems that the deer are calm, but because they are wild, they can attack people. Visitors are giving special crackers upon entering the park to feed the deer with. They are urged by park attendants to be careful while feeding and to not tease the animals with the food. Signs all over the park have warnings about this. Yet some people still manage to screw things up. If you take a vacation to Japan and plan on visiting the Nara Nature Park, just be careful when feeding the animals." And number 1. Chichen Itza Cenote. Cenotes in Mexico are popular swimming holes visited by locals and tourists alike. They are surrounded in ancient Mayan history and culture, as many of them used to be sacrifice spots to bid offerings for the Maya gods. But now, most of them are just used as fun spots to swim, and despite their dark history, a group of young teenagers on vacation near Quintana Roo decided it'd be a fun idea to go to the Cenote Azul. Little did they know, one of them would never return. A 16-year-old in the group sadly drowned in the water. When the friends of the victim frantically warned one of the guards, he told him that he'd take care of it. Divers later found the poor boy's body, as the family of the child were furious with local officers for not having proper security measures at the cenote. This death, along with many that still happen at similar cenotes around the country, are shrouded in mystery. Some even claim that the spots are cursed by ancient Mayan gods.
In North Wales, a father and daughter were walking through the countryside when they spotted a cat-like creature sprinting through a local farmer's field. They believe the creature is what's known around the town as the Beast of Pointy Bodkin. They managed to catch the prowling monster on camera, though it's a little blurry looking in the pictures. All you can see in the photographs is a black shape that is clearly sprinting through the field. However, the father and daughter both witnessed it with clear vision, saying the beast was some kind of enormous cat, unlike anything that lives naturally in the area. What's funny is that right before the two saw it, they were discussing that it might be fake. Nobody knows what the Beast of Pointy Bodkin actually is, but there have been mounting reports of it terrorizing the Welsh countryside. Scientific experts claim the beast could be a panther, though where it came from is a complete mystery. Nobody's gotten close enough to see the thing. Still, there's obviously a large cat-like animal prowling the area, and locals are trying to convince the government to take action before it starts eating people's pets, or worse, people. Number 9. Vaping dinosaur. A new dinosaur has been discovered unlike anything else known to science. An illustration of the mysterious creature was recently published. It looks an awful lot like some kind of Pokemon exhaling vapor, but this isn't exactly a vaping dinosaur. Instead, scientists say it breathed in an exceptional way. The creature was first identified when scientists found the rib and sternum bones of an animal about the size of a turkey. They were recovered from South Africa back in 2009. The dinosaur is called Heterodontosaurus tucky, and over the following years, scientists digitally reconstructed its skeleton, and through this process, they realized that the weird monster breathed by expanding its chest and belly. It had special rib bones shaped like paddles that moved to facilitate breathing. This is quite different from how mammals like humans breathe by expanding and contracting their lungs. According to the Natural History Museum in London, H. tucky measured about 3 feet from nose to tail, and once roamed what is now South Africa about 200 million years ago during the early Jurassic period. This is the only dinosaur found to breathe in this way, and not many specimens have been found, making the more complex parts of its anatomy still a mystery. Number 8. Spanish dancer. A mysterious sea animal known as the Spanish dancer was recently spotted on a beach in Australia. Somebody found the corpse of the creature washed up with the tide. They couldn't tell what it was. It looked like an orange and red oil spill. The creature was flat, several feet wide, and very bright. It had a pattern of vibrant, mesmerizing colors, making it beautifully dangerous. If you see a mysterious creature with bright colors, it's probably a good idea to stay away, just as a general rule. At first, it wasn't really clear what this creature was. It looked like an alien blob that fell out of space. However, after pictures were uploaded online, people were quick to point out that this huge ink splotch on the beach was actually a type of slug. That's right, the Spanish dancer is the casual name for a very complex marine slug. These creatures live in tropical waters and almost only come out under the cover of darkness at night, making its appearance on the beach a little odd. As for why it's known as the Spanish dancer, it's because the sea slug moves through the water as if dancing, wriggling its body through the blue abyss like a breakdancer. Number 7. Monster from the deep. A horrifying monster was just found washed up on a Russian beach, and nobody knows what it is. The creature was found in one of the most remote places in Russia, on the shore in Sakhalin, a small island near the Japanese border. It was first discovered by soldiers patrolling the area, and according to the Daily Mail, the creature was so disturbing looking that special forces came in and removed the carcass. Apparently, they're studying it right now to see what kind of beast it really is. The thing had a long body, very sharp teeth, and a coat of what seemed to be black fur. It was also found mostly decomposed, with its massive skeleton partially buried in the sand. It had the head of a crocodile but the body of a whale, which was the reason for all the confusion. It also measured 20 feet long, and there aren't too many animals swimming around that can grow to such extraordinary lengths. After the photo went viral online, some biologists came forward to declare the creature was actually a beluga whale, which honestly would make this a little anticlimactic. Number 6. The alien corpse. Something else weird was found in Russia, and some are saying it's a mutant monster. The creature in question was discovered by a woman named Tamara as she waded in the shallows of the Kovashi River near a small town residing in the shadow of the Leningrad nuclear power plant. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. This place has quite a history of accidents and cover-ups, including one particularly nasty incident in 1975, when 3 people were killed when a cooling circuit unit ruptured. There have been fires, radiation spills, and all kinds of other mishaps. This is what makes it so believable that a mutant was found in the area. It kind of makes perfect sense, right? The creature was nicknamed Kesha after its discovery. It looked like a tiny extraterrestrial corpse, but was probably just a radioactive fish. It had a twisted, deformed head, no body, and what looked like a frog's leg growing out of it. People thought it was a mutant chicken embryo. Kesha was shipped to Moscow for further analysis, which is a little dubious. It conjures pictures of a top-secret underground lab, mitochondrial sequencing, and reverse alien probes. Kesha had alien conspiracy theorists blowing dust off their tinfoil hats. Number 5. The Panama creature. The Panama creature was first photographed near the small town of Cerro Azul in Panama in 2009. It's also called the Panama Monster, Panama ET, Cerro Azul Monster, Blue Stream Monster, and the Blue Hill Horror. According to local reports, the strange creature was found by a group of teenagers. They were playing near a cave when they said the creature came out and started walking towards them. Fearing for their lives, the kids started throwing sticks and rocks at it. They killed it, and then they took some photos and handed them over to a local television station, and no one was really sure what they were looking at. Just a few years before this, there was another unknown thing that appeared beached in Montauk too. Despite looking like some kind of naked alien in the end, the Panama creature really wasn't that bizarre. After its discovery, a biopsy was performed by the National Environmental Authority of Panama. They concluded that the body actually belonged to a brown-throated sloth. The reason it looked so strange is that it had decomposed underwater. All its hair had fallen out, giving it the appearance of a bloated, naked monster. After the biopsy, the dead sloth was given a respectful burial. On the other hand, the Montauk monster was never officially identified. It could be anything from a raccoon to a dead chupacabra, or maybe it was a different sloth. What do you think? Number 4. Lizard in amber. Scientists discovered a fossil trapped in a piece of amber that dates back 99 million years. Yes, it's a lot like the mosquito encased in amber from the movie Jurassic Park. But this creature was a little more interesting. It was, during its life, what researchers described as a very strange lizard. It was also one of the smallest lizards that ever roamed the Earth, with a skull that measures only 0.6 inches. It had a long snout, protruding nostrils like a bird beak, and very pointy teeth. The lizard was also found with bird-like characteristics, and this has given scientists a tough time trying to figure out its place on the evolutionary tree. This tiny lizard may have been a very early cousin of the bird. According to the University of California Museum of Paleontology in Berkeley, amber fossils form after a plant or animal gets trapped and locked in sticky resin from a coniferous tree. As time goes by, the resin hardens into amber around the organic matter and seals the organism away from oxygen and bacteria. This protects it from decay and environmental wear. Soft tissue is often retained in these fossils. such as the feathered wings torn from a bird, a feathered dinosaur's tail, and an ancient lizard's tongue. Even though scientists have reconstructed the lizard bird, they still don't really know what it was or how it even evolved. Almost 100 million years ago, it got stuck in sticky resin leaking out of a tree and fossilized. And so far, it's the only one of its kind to ever be discovered. Number 3. Creatures on the beach. A young girl named Holly Austin was recently exploring Alderwick Beach in the UK with her mother when she uncovered something that scared her beyond measure. She was just paddling along the beach enjoying the day, looking for some cool stuff, but she definitely was not looking for a creepy deep-sea creature. From out of nowhere, a mysterious shape appeared in the water. Luckily, the little girl had some pretty good instincts and she stayed away from it. She called for her mother, who could hear the panic in her daughter's voice, and she quickly rushed over. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Just a few inches from where her daughter had just been was a bizarre-looking creature that was just floating in the water. She had never seen anything like it before in her whole life. It looked like some kind of mutated jellyfish. Convinced her eyes were playing tricks on her, she took some photos of the beast and showed it to other locals. Everyone else was just as stunned as she was. The creature had weird tentacles, looking like worms wriggling out of the top of its body. They were green and purple, with its body being a darker shade of purple. It looked like it might be poisonous, but since nobody had ever seen it before, nobody could say for sure just how dangerous it was. Number 2. The giant thing egg. Chilean scientists discovered a giant egg recently in Antarctica, and whatever left it behind had to be enormous. The fossilized egg looked like a deflated football. Since its discovery in 2011, over 10 years ago, the specimen just sat buried in the collection of fossils at the National Museum of Natural History in Chile, unlabeled and unstudied. Scientists just called it the thing. But not long ago, a team of researchers from the University of Texas decided to analyze the giant egg and see what kind of beast may have birthed it. They found through their research that the egg came into existence about 66 million years ago. When it was laid, it would have been just shy of a foot tall, making it the largest soft-shelled egg ever found, and the second largest egg ever laid that scientists know about. Before studying it, scientists didn't even know soft-shelled eggs could grow that big, but scientists still don't know what kind of creature popped out the egg. They say it was probably a giant marine reptile, something like an extinct mosasaur or maybe a giant Loch Ness monster. But this changes the current thoughts that these creatures could even lay eggs. Lead author Lucas Legendre, a postdoctoral researcher at UT Austin's Jackson School of Geosciences, said, "It's from an animal the size of a large dinosaur, but it's completely unlike a dinosaur egg. It is most similar to the eggs of lizards and snakes, but it's from a truly giant relative of these animals." Number 1. Unidentified monster. So speaking of the Loch Ness Monster, an unidentified beast was just spotted in Urquhart Bay, near the giant castle that looks over Loch Ness in Scotland. It was actually the 7th sighting of something mysterious swimming through the bay this year alone. The sighting was made by a tourist who was visiting the castle and standing at the edge of the sea cliffs. Using binoculars, the man was surveying the beach of the loch, looking for any sign of Nessie. What he saw was a huge shape, something black and slimy rising above the waves and then vanishing. According to the eyewitness, it had some kind of hump, looking like the slick back of a sea turtle. The sighting only lasted about 2 seconds, but he was very sure of what he saw. In his report, he also said that the weather was warm and sunny with excellent visibility. The tourist reported his sighting to Gary Campbell, who is keeping a record of all the monster sightings in this loch. So far, Gary has at least 1,130 alleged sightings that he's collected over the past 25 years. And he says that the reports are getting more credible as the years go by, suggesting there really is an unidentified sea monster swimming in Loch Ness. You know those lucky people who've been rich from the second they opened their eyes? The kids that were always given everything they wanted? Meet Petra Ecclestone. You could say Petra came into the world more than well endowed. She's the daughter of billionaire Bernie Ecclestone and model Slavica Ecclestone. Petra, 32 years old, works as a model, fashion designer, and worldly socialite, with most of her money still coming from her father. She stays true to her title of heiress, living it up in LA County. Supposedly, one of her old houses sold for over $100 million. She also apparently turned down an offer of $125 million for a property in Chelsea, London. It's hard to imagine what goes on at the mega rich's minds to be able to turn down an offer like that. She was married once before to the businessman James Stunt, but Petra now has her sights on a new man. Who could possibly meet the standards of someone like her, you might ask? None other than Sam Palmer, a former electrician. There's nothing wrong with being an electrician, it just seems odd that the mega millionaire Petra would be engaged to one. They supposedly met through Jay Rutland, her brother-in-law. Sam was one of his buddies, and apparently he and Petra hit it off big time. Enough so that Sam has secured himself a spot alongside Petra for life. Just goes to show that it pays to know the right people. Number 8. Madonna. One of the biggest musicians of all time, Madonna has had her share of fame and men to choose from. With an estimated net worth of $850 million, she even tops the charts of richest artists in the world. The 62-year-old icon has influenced the likes of Britney Spears, Lady Gaga, Ariana Grande, and countless more. And she's still making music. Her last album, Madam X, was only 2 years ago in 2019. With all this hype around her name, you might wonder what the legend gets up to in her spare time. Well, in an interview for the Anderson Cooper show, she said she mostly just reads and watches movies like the average person. But you might be surprised when you find out the kind of guys Madonna likes to date. Younger men. Much younger men. She has a long history of pursuing men younger than her, with her current boyfriend being the biggest age gap yet, 36 years. Yes, she's 62, and her lover is only 26. It might seem a little weird to people, but Madonna says she's interested in these men because she's young at heart. Older men apparently just don't understand her free spirit. Her boyfriend, Alan Malik Williams, is a dancer and artist who has no shame showing public signs of affection with the pop star. But he's just the latest in the long list of young men Madonna's been with, including Kevin Sampaio, 33 years younger, Timur Steffens, 30 years younger, Bram Sabat, 29 years younger, and many more. She stays true to the saying, love has no age limit. Number 7. Jennifer Lopez. If there's one celebrity female star that's the example of a triple threat, it would be Jennifer Lopez. She can act, sing, dance, and she's even an accredited businesswoman too. It seems like she can do anything. J-Lo literally started from the bottom in a small neighborhood in the Bronx, Jenny from the block. She shared a room with 2 sisters, and her parents were hard-working Puerto Rican immigrants. It was in this lively household that the love of music was instilled in the future star. At family events, she and her siblings were encouraged to perform, whether it be singing or dancing, similar to the late superstar Selena, who just so happened to be the focus of the breakthrough biopic J-Lo starred in that introduced her to the acting world. With her career growing from multiple angles and alleys, J-Lo has been a seriously busy woman. She's got a net worth nearing $500 million, proving just how successful hard work and a bit of luck can make you. And you may wonder if she ever has time to take it easy. But even with all the hard work she's put in, J-Lo still manages to play the dating field. Currently, she's back with her ex Ben Affleck, but she's been married several times before to other stars like Chris Judd and Mark Anthony, and has been known to date younger men, including Casper Smart, who was 13 years younger. Whether it be her career or dating life, Jennifer Lopez stands out whenever she steps into a room. Number 6. Kathy Griffin. Most young people know Kathy Griffin from a famous photo she appeared in back in 2017. The picture featured her holding a bloody, decapitated model of former President Donald Trump's head. Sounds gruesome, right? Well, it was, but she has apologized for it and her career continued. Griffin has been a big name in comedy since the 1980s, when she first appeared in an improv comedy group called The Groundlings. From then on, she's been featured in numerous TV shows, talk shows, even game shows, and continues to do stand-up comedy. With all of this under her belt, Kathy's become a multi-millionaire mogul. For a time, the famous comedian dated around before she settled down with her now husband, Randy Bick. Between the two, there is an 18-year age difference, but that hasn't stopped their love. Their bond started when they met at a food and wine festival. Griffin stated that she didn't think it would go anywhere at first besides a one-night stand, because Randy seemed like a man whore in her words. But years later, Randy and Griffin lived together under a $10 million roof with 2 sweet little dogs. That's the longest one-night stand I've ever heard of. So what do you think of these sugar mamas so far? Have any of them surprised you? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're liking this video. Number 5. Geena Davis. A little less well-known to younger audiences than some of the entries on this list, but still way more famous than your average Joe, is Geena Davis. She started off as a model in 1982, and slowly climbed the ladder into comfortable stardom over the years. After modeling for a few years, Gina got her first acting gig in the film Tootsie that became a cult classic, receiving multiple Academy Awards and nominations. After this success, roles were flowing in one after the other, but she's probably most well known for her part in the classic Halloween film Beetlejuice. A few more mediocre roles later in her career was on a downturn. In the 2010s, she saw a professional resurgence as she set up an organization called the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media. She's gone on to receive more acting roles and is a strong supporter of women's rights through her organization's work. Their goal is to increase the number of female characters portrayed in media, so young girls have more noteworthy role models to look up to. Davis has been married several times to the likes of Jeff Goldblum and Richard Amolo. Her latest relationship was with a surgeon named Reza Jahari, who was 15 years younger than her. Her fame has risen and fallen multiple times, but she's definitely a sugar mama you wouldn't want to mess with. Number 4. Halle Berry. With over 7 million followers on Instagram, Halle Berry has established herself as a force to be reckoned with. She's a model and actress most well known for her work in James Bond and the X-Men movies. Also notable is her pageantry career. She was the first runner-up in the Miss USA pageant, and later went on to place 6th in the 1986 Miss World pageant. Berry has won an Academy-accredited Best Actress award, and she was one of the highest-paid actresses during the early 2000s, bringing her net worth to a whopping $90 million. Berry has a bit of a complicated history when it comes to dating. In the early 90s, she was sued by her ex-boyfriend, John Ronan. He worked as a dentist and claimed Berry owed him $80,000 for helping her career going. Luckily, she got out of this when the judge filed in her favor. And who wouldn't? She's a superstar while he's just some dentist from Chicago. The list of scumbags she's dated included an abusive boyfriend who punctured her eardrum, Christopher Williams, and David Justice. She dated Gabriel Aubry, a Canadian model and stylist, while being 10 years older than him. The two of them went on to have a child together, and their relationship lasted 5 years, ending in 2010. Halle Berry is one of the most successful actresses of all time, so it just makes sense that she could have her pick of men. She could have whoever she wants, so she should maybe be a little more careful, though, who she picks, since her track record really isn't that great. Number 3. Janet Jackson. Everyone has heard of the Jacksons. They're one of the most famous musical families of all time, and continue to make music to this day. Michael Jackson was, and probably still is, on the top 10 list of most well-known artists, and his younger sister Janet wasn't too far off from that title herself. Just like her brother, Janet topped the charts in the 80s with her music. She was known back then for her innovative and sex-positive song choices, and she starred in the television show The Jacksons as the youngest of the 10 siblings. In the course of her career, she signed multiple multi-million-dollar contracts, some of which being with hit labels like Virgin Records. She was one of the highest-paid artists in the game. Although her career has slowed down a bit since the 80s and 90s, she's still worth well over $190 million. Her personal relationships haven't been as lucky as her career, though. She was married to a man named James DeBarge for a year, before getting their marriage annulled due to his cocaine addiction. James would later go to prison for drug-related charges, and it was well known that he had issues with money. She was also with Jermaine Dupri, a fellow but not nearly as successful musician who also had money troubles for 7 years. Despite her troubles with men, Janet will forever live on as a legend in the entertainment industry. Number 2. Wendy Williams. Some people will just say exactly what they're thinking. Well, one woman who's made a career out of it, and quite a successful one at that, is Wendy Williams. Her rise to fame started off when she began as a radio DJ. On air, she would talk about her personal struggles and other difficult topics that drew listeners in and made them want to hear more. Enough people tuned in that Wendy was eventually offered the chance to do a TV show. In 2008, The Wendy Williams Show launched and was a smash hit. The talk show continues to this day and focuses on topics like celebrity drama, interviews, and advice to audience members. After doing the show for years, Wendy announced that she needed to take a short break to focus on her health issues. It was discovered that the famous woman had Graves' disease, and complications were starting to occur from it. Thankfully, she's back now and looks better than ever. Williams was married to a man named Kevin Hunter for decades, but in April of 2019, she filed for divorce and moved on with her life. Now on her show, she's made comments about dating multiple younger men. She's quoted saying that there's an appeal to dating younger guys, and they make us feel good about ourselves. After these comments aired, many of her longtime fans were worried about what exactly Wendy was getting up to when she wasn't on camera. But it doesn't seem like these concerns worry her, as she's still out living her best life and hosting her hit TV talk show. Number 1. Demi Moore. Born in the famous spaceship city of Roswell, New Mexico, Demi Moore has had a wildly successful acting career. She started off with her role in the forever-running soap opera General Hospital, and has been seen in films like Striptease and Charlie's Angels 2. She was married to die-hard star Bruce Willis for a time, which set her up with even more fame than her acting did. But her marriage to Bruce ended and that career continued. She's now worth nearly $200 million, after receiving about 90 of that in divorce settlements from Bruce. Apart from her acting, she's also a very successful real estate investor and activist. Demi has done a lot of work pushing for women's equality in the entertainment industry, and she, along with another ex-husband of hers, have done a lot for victims of sex trafficking. What about her dating life, you might be asking? What happened after Bruce? Well, a lot. She was married to Ashton Kutcher, who is 15 years younger than her. Their relationship lasted 8 years before they broke it off, and since then, Demi has been very busy dating more younger men, the likes of which include Sean Friday, Harry Morton, and Martin Henderson. It's really none of our business, but it looks like there's a trend here, Demi. Who knew these ladies were such sugar mamas? Did anyone on this list shock you? If you could find a sugar mama, would you? If you were rich enough, do you think you'd try to be one? Let us know in the comments section down below. And if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. We'll see you next time.